Let's talk about time management today. I know, not the most exciting topic, but as a designer, you are likely going to be juggling multiple projects or multiple priorities. And so having a good sense of time management is going to be really important if you want to be effective in your job as a designer and have impact. I asked you all on Instagram what questions you had around time management, and a lot of the questions centered around these common themes, which included questions around prioritization, how to sort of estimate and scope projects, and then also how to make time for learning, growth, and development as a designer. So let's touch on all three of those. Let's start by touching on prioritization. Now, prioritization for me isn't about necessarily how to juggle and prioritize 10 things, right? Prioritization for me is about assessing those 10 different opportunities and saying no to most of them and then saying yes to only the highest priority things. So it goes from juggling 10 things to only juggling, let's say, the 3 highest priority. As a designer, we want to help people, we want to solve problems, and so saying no to opportunities is really difficult sometimes, but I think setting boundaries as a designer is really, really important. Honestly, the key to unlocking more time for projects and more focused time for myself has been the art of saying no and practicing how to say no to opportunities and how to say yes to the right ones. And if you're unsure which projects to say yes to, then ask questions to try and learn, uncover, and find out more about each project. You want to try and find out which projects are most important and which have the highest impact. It's also worth asking or thinking, where can you as a designer have most impact and what is most important? Once you've asked these questions and you've identified what the top priority projects or opportunities are, say no to everything else. And saying no doesn't mean saying no forever. It might just mean no right now. Once you've actually identified those top 3 priorities, actually prioritizing and juggling those top 3 priorities can also be a challenge. I have made a video all about roadmap planning and sort of design planning and task management, and there's a template included in that video to kind of help you get started organizing your work and sharing that out to stakeholders and keeping tabs on the order of priority of your projects. So go and check that out here. I also had a question around how to organize Figma files and save time across the team, and this question ties in perfectly with today's sponsor, Zeplin. Usually when I'm working in Figma, I have a bunch of screens organized in a particular way. For example, a happy path laid out vertically with screen states stacked horizontally, just like we have here. It's also common to have breakpoints for web, tablet, and mobile. But these screen states can be difficult to communicate to your team. For example, even within my team at work, we organize our Figma files differently, and it's not uncommon to have trouble interpreting my coworkers' files. Now imagine you're a developer. That's why I recommend using Zeplin to organize and communicate screen states and variants. Here you can see my screens are organized into auth and context sections, which are attached to Jira. We can quickly add screen variants by dragging and dropping my error and loading states or my breakpoints. Now I can hop in and quickly toggle between them. I can also add a -V to my frames in Figma, and they will automatically come in as screen variants in Zeplin, which is pretty neat. So Zeplin helps organize Figma with screen variants, allowing you to work comfortably and freely by providing a good structure and workflow for the rest of the team. You can try it out using the link below. Next, let's touch on focus time. I don't know about you, but for me as a designer, my calendar can easily look insane and I can get booked up with back-to-back meetings all day if I don't have any control or put in any boundaries in place for my calendar. One thing we do at my company, Wealth Symbol, is we have a maker day every Wednesday, which is essentially a no meeting day, and it's time for us to make, create, and get sort of that deep work and focus time that we need to work on our projects. If your company doesn't offer these dedicated sort of no meeting times, then something I've done in the past is actually put focus time blocks in my calendar. So identify what the sort of most focused time of the day is for you. What is the most productive hour? Maybe it's from 2 to 4 p.m. or 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. Put a 2-hour block in your calendar, label it focus time, and ask people to reach out to you first before booking your time during that period. This ensures that you have dedicated blocks of time scheduled in your calendar, which is the important part, that is dedicated to productivity and focus. And hopefully your teammates will respect that. Another thing you could consider is themes for each of your different days. And my friend Charlie Marie is really, really good at this, where she'll actually set different themes for sort of different days of the week. Or you could even go broader and set different themes per week of the month. For example, you might dedicate Mondays to this project and Tuesdays to this other project. Or you might break it up more in terms of sort of discipline. So maybe Monday is for research and reading, and Tuesday is for explorations. It's kind of up to you to think about what themes would be most beneficial for you in your work and dedicate them accordingly. Next, let's talk about procrastination, because a lot of you are asking me about how to avoid procrastinating. And the truth is, I don't. I procrastinate too. And I think a little bit of procrastination isn't harmful as long as it's not affecting the quality of your work or getting in the way of you actually producing work. As long as you're delivering on time, then, checking Twitter or YouTube now and then is not the end of the world. I don't think we as humans were meant to be 100% focused doing work from like 9 to 5. That's just insane. Of course, I take breaks and I wander off and check Twitter probably a little bit too many times than I should, but I don't find that it's impacting the quality of my work, and I'm still delivering on time. So as long as it's controlled and managed, I think it's okay. If you do find that you're over procrastinating and it is starting to affect your ability to deliver results, then one thing I've done in the past is used a technique called the pomodoro timer. Now, there are a lot of resources online for pomodoro techniques, and you can go and read all about it. I like to use a website called PomoFocus, and you can put in the amount of time that you want for focus time, the amount of time you want for a break, and it's essentially a timer that will tell you when your focus time is ended and when your break starts and begins. I typically like to do 25 minutes of work followed by 5-10-minute break, or a longer sort of 15-minute block of work followed by a 15-minute break. So you could try that as a technique as well. Let's move on to the next big theme, which was how to estimate project scope and ensure that you meet deadlines. Now, this does require a little bit of practice. I find that when I started as a designer, I way underestimated how long it would take me to complete certain tasks or certain projects. So it does require a little bit of time sort of in the field or working as a designer, whether it's in-house or freelancing, to get a sense of your own capabilities, your cadence, how you like to work, how quickly you can work. If you do find that you are consistently quite slow and missing deadlines, it's definitely a sign that you should sort of reevaluate your time and how you're spending your time and how you're prioritizing things within a project. I've actually done a video all about how to sort of speed up the design process and workflow, which you can check out here if you find that you are spending too long on certain parts of the design process. In terms of trying to understand project scope and sizing up front, I just ask a lot of questions. I talk to my engineers, I talk to data scientists, I talk to my product manager. I try to get a sense of the technical feasibility, any sort of limitations or constraints that I have to be aware of upfront going into a project before I even sort of put any pen to paper. Another area that I ask questions around is dependencies. So trying to uncover any dependencies that this project has. For example, maybe another team's project is dependent on this project going live, or vice versa. So try to get a sense of maybe who the wider stakeholders are, whether they're individuals or whether they are teams, and what their priorities are and how your project basically affects that. And a little secret is that as a designer, you actually often have influence on what the actual final scope of a project will be. If you think the project scope is too large, then propose breaking it down. Maybe you break it down into smaller milestones and you do small releases over time rather than the entire big scope of the project up front. You do have a bit of wiggle room and influence here to sort of set your own constraints and your own boundaries with regards to the project and propose what is best to the client or the team. The last theme was around how to make time for learning, upskilling, and growth as a designer. And I love that a lot of you asked me this question because it shows that you're wanting to grow and learn as a designer. So that's pretty awesome. Honestly, I don't dedicate time exclusively to this area. Instead, I find opportunities on the job. What's worked well for me is being really transparent with my manager about what my goals are, where and how I want to grow. Hopefully your manager is initiating this conversation with you, but if not, maybe that's an opportunity for you to initiate it with them. And I've found that when I've been really honest and transparent with my managers in the past about areas I want to grow, they will keep an eye out for opportunities on the team that help me grow and help me develop in those particular areas. I don't practice my design skills outside of work, except for maybe a little bit of some of this YouTube stuff where I may now and then have to create a thumbnail or something like that. I don't do any freelancing design work. I don't do any personal sort of design projects. So all of my learning, upskilling, and growth with regards to my design skills is done on the job. Now, sometimes there might not be opportunities on the job for what you're trying to grow in. And this is where I think keeping an eye on sort of external opportunities is really good as well. So for example, in the past, I have taken some sort of cohort courses. You can also read books about design, listen to podcasts about design. And I've been asked how I find time to read these books or listen to podcasts. It's just part of my sort of natural day-to-day routine. Every night I read a book before I go to bed. Sometimes it's a novel, sometimes it's a design book. It kind of depends what I'm in the mood for. Or when I'm walking my dog, or in the past when I was commuting, then I would always listen to a podcast, and sometimes that's a design podcast. So I don't really sort of block out time in my life for design upskilling. Instead, it's kind of embedded into either the work I already do on my day job or listening to a podcast, reading a book. I mix that up by sort of including design related things in there now and then. Those are the top 3 themes around time management that I wanted to share with you in this video. If you have more questions about time management that you would like me to dive into, then please do leave a comment below. I do read and respond to almost every comment. I know there's this thing on YouTube where people seem to think that the creators don't read the comments, but I do for sure. So thank you to all of you who leave comments. I read every single one of them. And I guess I will see you in a future video. Take care. Bye-bye.